Welcome to Balancing the Ledger, where tech and finance intersect. I'm Robert Hackett, and I'm here today with Jeremy Allaire, the co-founder and CEO of Circle. Thanks for coming on the show, Jeremy.
Thanks. Pleasure to be here.
All right, so tell me a little bit, for the people who don't know, what is Circle? What are you guys working on?
Sure. Yeah. So Circle is what we refer to as a crypto finance company. We've grown a lot. We've been around for about 6 years. We have a portfolio of products at the kind of retail end user level, like a payment system that's built on blockchain tech, simple investment products for people to invest in different crypto assets. We run one of the larger exchanges in the US called Poloniex. We also, at the other end, have an institutional business called Circle Trade, where we are a major provider of liquidity and an over-the-counter trading service for the most popular digital assets. Some recent things, we launched a stable coin called US Dollar Coin through a consortium that we formed with Coinbase last fall. And that's a price stable US dollar pegged token used for payments and settlement and in a variety of other contexts. We recently announced the closing of the acquisition of Seedinvest. Seedinvest is the largest equity crowdfunding platform in the US. They've been at the forefront of implementing ways for startups and growth companies to raise capital directly from investors over the internet.
So you mentioned a bunch of things in there. I want to pick apart each one.
Okay.
But first we'll start with Seedinvest. This acquisition just closed. What is the significance of this purchase to your company?
Yeah, so when we founded Circle, we were really excited about the idea that on top of these public chains, eventually you'd be able to issue assets and then write contracts through smart contracts around those assets. And it took several years for that to become technically possible. Ethereum was sort of the first platform to make that possible. And starting about a year and a half ago, we got very excited about this idea that investment contracts could be tokenized and that a whole batch of digital assets would become tradable. The sort of crypto exchanges were like an early version of that. After we acquired Poloniex, we knew we wanted to get into the regulated sphere of issuing securities and enabling investors on the internet to invest in securities, but doing it in a highly compliant way. So Seedinvest, has built out a crowdfunding platform that has helped, hundreds of companies raise hundreds of millions of dollars by issuing securities over the internet, marketing them to investors on the internet, and letting both accredited investors, but also critically unaccredited investors invest in those companies. So it operates a broker-dealer, and now as part of Circle, of course, we're going to look at ways that we can bring the benefits of digital assets, crypto technology, blockchains into this whole area of issuing securities on the internet.
Does that certification as a broker-dealer extend to Circle broadly, or does it remain in that one sort of business?
So the business is the Seedinvest business, and that's what it's sort of authorized for activity. I think when we look at other things that we might want to do with that in the future, we're going to work with our partners in government, our partners in agencies like FINRA to really figure that out together. And it's very clear that there's a lot of major new technology that makes a lot of new use cases possible, and sort of working closely with our regulatory partners to make sure that's all done in a way which continues to meet their mandate, which is protecting investors, making sure markets are safe and orderly, and so the digital securities, which is a very new thing, is new. So we got to work through those details, and eventually we've got a lot of ideas on what we want to do, and we'll evolve accordingly.
Between your cryptocurrency exchange, Poloniex, and also your over-the-counter desk, which has done very good business, how is that faring now that there's been a crypto market downturn?
Yeah, well, it's down.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, effectively, our marketplace business, our markets business, and our trade business are very correlated to the market activity. So when there's volatility, there's more activity. When there's not volatility or prices are down, then volumes are down. So totally correlated there. Not a huge surprise that it sort of affects the entire market. I think we pride ourselves on running platforms that are compliant, that are safe. We just actually I think a third party announced that we're implementing a market surveillance solution to make sure that there's not market manipulation happening. So we really I think go out of our way to make sure it's a safe, compliant platform as well.
What kind of runway are you guys working with over at Circle? Reports say that you are in the midst of a fundraising round right now.
So we don't comment on rumors and speculation, obviously. We had a very significant growth year last year, even though there was a crypto market, bear market. So we managed to grow. We grew our volumes, our customer base, our revenue, et cetera. Again, can't comment on any specific kind of financial plans.
Reports have said that shares in Circle have been trading at a discount on secondary markets, that the valuation, which was at $3 billion during the last fundraise, has come down to something more closer to $1 billion or maybe even less. What's happened there?
So we don't comment specifically on share price, but that was also misreporting. People, there are secondary trading platforms. People list things that they're offering shares at. It could be a former employee, it could be those kinds of things, but that doesn't mean they're actually trading. So again, can't comment on specific transactions or specific prices, things like that. But the way that was characterized was inaccurate.
What's your take on Facebook, which is apparently spinning up a stablecoin of its own that's going to be across its messenger services, WhatsApp, Instagram Messenger, and Facebook Messenger?
I think it's a great sign that major internet companies are starting to look at issuing cryptocurrencies. That's very, very positive in our view overall. The approach that we've taken is to create a consortium model. And when we think about something like a standard for how fiat money works on the internet, it's really, really critical that it's an open standard that lots of companies can implement, that has a self-governance mechanism around it, that can evolve both as a technical standard as well as like a membership framework. And that's why we jointly formed the Center Consortium with Coinbase. And that's off to a very good start. It's now the #2 stablecoin in the world and has grown a lot in terms of ecosystem adoption. And we're just months into it, so it's really early. I think our view is that there needs to be a kind of HTTP for money on the internet, and it needs to be able to have lots of companies participating in it. And I think that approach, an open standards approach, a consortium approach that's broad and allows for global participation, is ultimately going to be much more successful than a single company issuing a currency themselves.
I guess we don't really know what form Facebook's coin is going to take, whether it's going to be open, whether it's going to be closed. But
Sure.
WhatsApp has more than 1 billion users on
Absolutely.
that network. What is sort of the competitive advantage? What's the moat for you, having gone out earlier with a stablecoin, to keep such a juggernaut off your flanks?
Yeah, I mean, it is unknown exactly what they're doing. I think from our perspective, a base layer of tokenized fiat money is a really critical precondition to a lot of things. Our view is that in the coming years, basically payments will just be a free service on the internet. It'll work the same way as email, as text messaging, as other kinds of data sharing. But the really critical thing, and a core reason why we have developed this in the first place, is the power of having smart contracting platforms that allow you to build economic arrangements around those fiat assets. So build lending relationships, building investment contracts, building really the building blocks for how the economy works are economic contracts. And so it's really critical that the technology not just be a currency that is used for payments, but it actually can be part of a broader infrastructure which can be used to build next generations of the way capital markets work, the way lending works, the way all these kind of financial services applications works. And so building on top of a public infrastructure, initially we've built on top of Ethereum. We'll see how that emerges, in terms of a next generation of Ethereum or other public chains in the future. I think that's critical. Again, we don't know what Facebook's plans are, but what we do know is that in the history of the internet, open platforms, open ecosystems, open standards that a broad range of developers and companies can build on thrive. And we want to see that in the open finance movement as well. And I think we're not alone in that. There are hundreds of companies working towards that. And so we're really aligned with that as well.
What predictions do you have for 2019?
For 2019, I think we're going to see a lot of growth in stablecoin adoption. I think we're going to see some major new public chains that launch that are very compelling and could give an indication for a kind of new phase of capability in the blockchain space.
Which are the most compelling?
I don't want to comment on specific names because we do run markets in these spaces, but there are, I think, a lot of very compelling projects there. I think we're going to see the first movement in things like security tokens, where there start to be some compelling initial use cases around those as well. So those are certainly some of the themes that we see.
Well, thanks so much for joining us, Jeremy. We're looking forward to having you out in Montauk for Brainstorm Finance this summer.
Thank you, Robert.
Thanks for coming to the studio.
Absolutely.
I'm Robert Hackett. Come to fortune.com for more Balancing the Ledger.